Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of what I'm going to call Making Perfectly Balanced Monsters for 5e. I've been inspired by some recent artwork that I created, and today we're going to be looking at this little guy here. So with that concept today of a Kobold Paladin here, I'm going to see about making something along those lines. For today, let's aim for a CR4 instead. So our little Kobold Paladin here will be a CR4. Now, as before, our tool here, this tool that I created, is going to make a whole bunch of suggestions here. And because our kobold here has a whole bunch of, it looks like plate armor and whatnot, we're going to go ahead and give them a really high AC. So let's aim for, let's go with extreme for now, the max of 16, and kind of decide from there. Now, because they're heavily armored here, I might go with a higher range of hit points and make them a little lower on the damage range. So this is going to be a bit of a tank with a less, maybe a bit of a burst to them here. So we'll go with moderate hit points for now, giving us 123 for a CR4 monster with 16 AC at the extreme range for their range. Now, of course, we're going to go ahead and give them the extreme strength of +3. For the dexterity, we're actually going to keep that at low, so we're not going to have any kind of a dexterity modifier here. So, unfortunately, our Kobold Paladin here isn't going to have much of a dex thing, so all of their armor is coming from their AC for sure. Constitution, definitely going to be on the high range as well. Intelligence, probably not that good. We'll give them a +1 for Constitution. Definitely going to give them also high on the Wisdom here. We'll say a high wisdom and also a high charisma. Now, we're not going to really give them much in the way of spells. They're just going to have probably a burst effect or maybe a couple other things that are spell-like. So now we have all of our stats picked out. Let's go ahead and take a look at any kind of proficiency saves. Now, we could go with the typical paladin range here of wisdom and charisma saves, which could be good. We don't get any kind of a bonus here for our effective AC if we only stick with the 2. Now, let's move into the attack ranges here and go ahead and give them a couple attacks. So, our first one is going to be obviously some kind of a mace attack, and since they already have a higher range here, let's go ahead and keep them on the lower end. So, we'll say, maybe a moderate 2-hit and a moderate damage. So, they're only going to be dealing maybe 4 points of damage, but how many times are we going to be attacking? Let's take a look over here at the multi-attack worksheet just to see what kind of range we would need to hit here in order for them to do some damage. Now, of course, we're going to be doing some kind of an AoE, some kind of a burst like AoE hit. But for the time being, we need to hit at least a 21 to 26 for our monster here. So, with only one attack, we'll say for the mace swing, we would be dealing 4 points of damage, which means we need a lot more here. If we were to do, 3 multi-attack swings in one round, we're still only sitting at 12, and we still need to get another, good amount of damage here. So our multi-attack could be 3, but for the time being, we're also going to, let's add in that AoE damage. So if we're going to do a limited use, 14 damage on one target, we're hoping to get at least 2. So for 14 average damage, we're going to go ahead and multiply that times 2. For 28 points of damage, which throws us suddenly up into 40 total damage in the first 3 rounds of combat. So, oddly enough, with our damage here, we're doing a good amount of damage, at least in the first round of combat, which is bursty, but after that, we're not really doing much of anything for damage, which is kind of sad. So let's tone this down a bit. Let's back up to, let's say we'll go with 2 attacks for a multi-attack, and we'll increase the damage, a little higher. Let's go with a high damage range, and now we have 6. So instead of 4, we'll be doing 6 damage, which still puts us at 40. We do have that limited use here of 14. We could go lower. It looks like we either need to do something different with the attack patterns here, or we don't use this burst damage, because I would like to see more moderate damage over the round than one big hit and a bunch of meh damage. So let's go ahead and not do the burst like we were considering here. We have ourselves a couple attacks here. We're going to go ahead and keep the 2 hit chances to moderate. And let's add in a second attack that could be on the moderate range as well. So we have 1 high range, so maybe it's like a slam from the mace and then a hit from a shield. And we'll do those instead. So we'll have a 6 and a 4 for a total of 10. If we average that out, we'll have 2 hits at 8, which gives us 16, which means we still have to do a whole lot more damage. Let's take a look at some of these traits here. Now, as for the hit point traits here, I'm going to avoid these for the time being because our Kobold Paladin here already has an average of 123, so we'll skip over all of this, and plus nothing really besides maybe Legendary Resistance makes any kind of sense. So let's take a look at the damage per round traits, and Paladins generally have some kind of an aura. When we think of Heated Body, we might think of the Balor or another monster that exudes damage. This could also be some kind of angelic or holy aura that they're just dealing damage every round. Since we're already at 16 here and we need to hit another 21 to 26, the Heated Body will deal damage anyone in an AoE, maybe within 10 or 15 feet of the Kobold Paladin themselves. And already we need at most 10, but at minimum we'll be doing some kind of 8 damage here from our Heated Body. That brings us up to 24 points of damage every round of combat, provided that there's only one melee in combat with the Kobold Paladin here. Now that I think we're pretty much done with the damage per round traits, let's go ahead and move into the armor class traits. Now again, we already have the max of 16 for our Kobold Paladin, so nothing here is going to be really all that great. We want to maybe step back a bit and give our Kobold Paladin parry. That could be a really great little extra in here. So that's really the only thing I could say that would be really good. Now, as for the attack bonus traits, Ambusher, Blood Frenzy, Nimble Escape, and Pack Tactics, we are Kobold, so we're going to need Pack Tactics. Our 2-hit goes from a +3 to a +4 for both of our attacks here. Now, as for our skills, what kind of skills should our Paladin be proficient with? We'll say maybe Perception. We're going to say definitely Religion. We'll say they're an expert in Religion. We'll give them proficiency in History, and maybe even Persuasion. That sounds fun. We might be going a little too over the top here, so I think I'm gonna stop here. And also, I added on a couple extra things that may not have been in the dragon video before. So I'm going to go ahead and click the attacks for 1 to 2, since we're using the first 2 attacks here for printing values. So now we don't get all 4 of those. Now, as for down here, we're going to go ahead and of course I didn't clear this out, but we're going to go ahead and switch this to our Kobold Paladin. This will be a small creature. We will go with humanoid for now. And we'll say any alignment, just for the sake of things. Now, obviously, our character here is going to have a movement of 30 feet. Anything else we leave at 0 won't be printed on the character sheet, which is nice. And then we move on to its senses. Our Kobold probably should have dark vision, obviously. I'm pretty sure it's 30 feet. Double checking, actually looks like kobolds have 60 feet naturally, so we'll go ahead and give them 60 feet of dark vision, and we'll just leave those as it. As for our other traits here, but for the time being, I don't think I really want to go with anything else here. Languages, we will go ahead and say Common and Draconic. Okay, so we will go ahead and select Common and Draconic. So let's go ahead and print our code. Okay, here we go. We have ourselves a Kobold Paladin, small humanoid, any alignment. And then, yeah, we'll just copy and paste this over and go to the home brewery. And we will go ahead and slap our code in. This is a rather nice looking little segment here. And with the power of editing, we now have ourselves a nice Kobold Paladin stat block. And now the last thing to do is compare it to the old tool to see how it stands up. So let's go ahead and put in all of our information there. We have AC 16, 123 hit points into this, so we already have 3 here. We'll add in another 120 down here, so that'll give us the 123 effective hit points that our Kobold Paladin has. And then we also need to put in, let's see here, so we're going to be dealing 6 points of damage for 1 hit, 1 for that, that'll give us a multi-attack of this plus this for 10. And then we will have that every round of combat, plus we also need to throw in Pack Tactics and the Heated Body of 7. I had to make a change to that because I couldn't get a dice roll to come out exactly at 8 without doing any kind of modifiers. Okay, and sure enough, here we go. We have ourselves a CR4 Kobold Paladin, which is great. The higher AC does push us up to a DCR 5. While our attacks are still on the very low end, we probably could bump this up to the moderate range and go a little higher. To save any time here, I will go ahead and increase the damage from, it looks like we have, actually no, that should be already higher. Why is that not coming up higher? Okay, so our damage was a bit lower, and for some reason I didn't calculate it quite correctly. So I went ahead and updated the mace and the shield slam to an 8 and a 6. So let's go ahead and switch those to 8 and 6. Now we get a 14, and now our OCR is right where it should be in the low range suggested, which for a CR4, I like to have it 1 below, and the AC 1 higher, we actually do have that slightly higher range. So we're a little bit tankier, we are a little less damage dealing, but this is good. This is where I want to see it. I don't want to see huge ranges where we've got a DCR way up here and an OCR way down here, which is a just boring battle. Now we have a Kobold Paladin that deals 7 points of radiant damage from their aura to anyone within 10 feet of them, and they're dealing a total of 14 points of damage every round of combat on top of that, giving us 21 points of damage, which is the bare minimum for a CR3. There we go. We have ourselves a perfectly balanced Kobold Paladin for use in your games. And if you've made it this far, as always, as a little thank you from me to you, the link in the description will get you the statted out with all the information and the character artwork as well. So go ahead and grab that and use those in your games, and if you do, please let me know how this character worked out at your table. I would love to know it. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, keep making those perfectly balanced monsters.